Okay, I'm trying this again. Sorry. I am still learning all of this technology stuff. Anyway, hello there to whoever is going to be joining me live for a mindful mending self-care workshop. Gunnar keeps trying to steal the tennis ball that's going to be used for this process, so hopefully we can, leave it. So hopefully we can, hi Cammie, good to see you, girly. So I am here to basically offer up some different ways that we can help our bodies when we are struggling with different types of pain. So I know we've got some people that were interested in that, so I'm going to wait a few minutes to let some people join us. Hope everybody's having a good day out there. It was actually a really nice day here in San Diego, sun shining and all of that. So I will wait for a few. I'm happy to have you. Cammie, I hope you're doing well. I miss you. So probably one of the first things that I definitely want to, the reason I decided to do this, I'll go ahead and just share that, was I know that a lot of us obviously cannot get out into the world and possibly see our physical therapists or our massage therapists or these different things that we normally do, and so therefore I think this was the perfect time to just offer up this option of being able to take care of your body while we're in this kind of shutdown, we can't get out there, but also being able to have these different techniques of self-care where you can do it, working side by side, possibly with your physicians or your physical therapists and so forth, or hopefully avoiding them altogether. So, hi Diane, good to see you. So, what I want to start with, obviously, is this, what I'm showing you guys today, some of these different things, is not meant to diagnose in any way. Everything is you obviously having to know your body, so I kind of want to release myself from any liability that you want to just be very mindful of what you're doing when you're doing any type of, whether it's exercise or self-care regimens. You just want to be very mindful of your own body, and the same goes for when you are working with physical therapists. Oftentimes we think that the physical therapist knows what they're doing, and there were times I actually went to one and there were things that he was doing that was causing me a lot of pain, but I thought, well, he knows what he's doing. He must know what he's doing, so I'm just going to bear with it. And it actually ended up causing me injury because I didn't speak up for myself. I didn't say, hey, wait, that hurts, whatever. So that's something to be mindful of when you're doing any kind of self-care, is listening to your body and being mindful, and things should not hurt when you're doing these different things. I mean, you'll feel a little bit of discomfort, but there's a difference between discomfort and pain. So the one thing that I really want to stress about the human body is everything is interconnected. So there's a kinetic chain that basically operates this entire body, which involves the skeleton, the muscles, the tissues, all of it. It's all interrelated, it's all interconnected. So what that means is if you have a tight muscle, say in your neck, you could actually eventually start to feel that in your foot, because the muscles, when the muscles aren't moving as they should and there's tension or different things that are going on, your body starts to compensate in different ways, which then can lead to other muscles malfunctioning, and then it just kind of goes from there. And so you end up with issues that start at one place and end up in another. So that's why it's really important to just be fully aware of what's going on in your body at all times. So the one thing I really want to talk about to start out with is our neck and shoulders. That is an area where a lot of us carry a lot of tension. When we are tense and we're short breathing, we pull into the shoulders. We pull the shoulders up and we tense these muscles, our upper trapezoid muscles here, and into our neck and into the base of our skull. So all these muscles in this area get tightened when we're tense. They also get tight because a lot of the stuff we do is with the our upper body and doing these different movements, and we just tend to carry a lot of it right up in this neck area. So one of the best ways that you can really pay attention to self-massage, which I'm a firm believer in getting regular massage with an actual therapeutic massage person, but we can't always afford that, or we don't have the time to do that, so we can always take care of ourselves. So one of the best points to massage that we don't really even think about is at the base of the skull. So right here at the very base of the skull, so if you go at the very top of your neck and at the base of your skull, that's your occipital here, these can get really, really tight. So if you put some pressure and you kind of roll through them, and kind of right up to where the skull is and behind the ears and where you feel kind of where it connects to the neck, like every time I do that, I actually get chills. Like I feel tingling all throughout my body because it was so tight there, I didn't even know it. And then as soon as I touched it, my body was like, oh, thank you. So that's a really good place to kind of start with a good self-massage release when you want to kind of start working some stuff in the shoulders. So you go right at the base, and then you just kind of go down through the neck, and just being mindful that you don't want to be really obviously overdoing any of the spine of the neck, but feeling into the muscles that are behind the neck. And then you kind of massage through, going to where the neck attaches to these muscles that I'm talking about here. So these muscles here are traps, are the ones that get so tight, all the tension gets stuck here. So the best way to release these just by self-massage is to literally take your hands and just kind of pull them forward, not really tweaking your neck, but just pulling the muscles so that you're kind of releasing them from the bony structures that are beneath them. So that's basically what massage does, is it's a myofascial release. Fascia is, let me actually explain what fascia is. That will really help you. I wrote this down because it's a really good definition. Fascia, our whole body is covered in fascia. And what that is it's a band or sheet of connective tissue beneath the skin that attaches, stabilizes, encloses, and separates muscles and other internal organs. So this fascia that we have is something that encompasses our entire body. And that fascia will get tight. And so what we do is we're doing a myofascial release, which is basically what massage is. So we're taking that connective tissue that's just below the skin, that's on top of the muscles, and we're releasing that. And so you just kind of pull through the shoulders. And then what I often do then is at the shoulders, then after I've kind of released that, I want to one at a time. So instead of going here and doing both of them, because that's where we are a lot in our stress of the day, right? Or our type of anxiety that we have. We want to do it one at a time so that you're teaching those muscles that they don't necessarily need to work together. And that actually helps to release them. And oftentimes we forget that moving a muscle actually helps to release a muscle. It's our where when we get stuck and we don't move much is when our muscles actually get tighter. So we kind of, just releasing the neck muscles here, the traps that release into the neck. So I pull through there and then kind of roll the shoulders. Oftentimes, because these muscles that I talked about that we just released get overly tight, what that can lead to is frozen shoulder. And what is frozen shoulder? Well, there's a whole variety of things that can cause frozen shoulder. But one of the main things that can cause frozen shoulder, if you don't actually have an injury, is that these muscles right here that we just released here at the top of the shoulders into the neck get so overly tight that you have the inability to get your arm up overhead because this muscle locks in place, and then all the muscles that are back behind your shoulder blade and into this area of the shoulder cannot release to get you in and up. So this muscle here has gotten so tight that it locks up everything that's in the whole shoulder girdle, which is in the back of the body primarily. I mean, it's here as well, but a lot of it behind the shoulder blades. So if you have frozen shoulder, basically the release of the occipital, so here at the base of the skull, going down into the neck and into the shoulders just like we did. And then what you can actually start to do is you start to just be able to press into this top of the muscle here, so your trapezoid, and press that muscle kind of like almost like you're holding it in place, and then start to just slowly raise your arm up and feel the muscles that are in your shoulder, that are behind your shoulder blade, that are working instead of this muscle, because you basically held this muscle, it shut down, now you've got to use those muscles in the back. And you may not be able to get up real far, but you can kind of feel how that opens up through those backs. So the key on any type of frozen shoulder is you want to always do it just little bits at a time, because if you've gotten some muscles that have frozen in this area, you don't want to just rip through those. They need to figure their way out. They need to work their way out. So that's where this wonderful thing also comes in. So the Theracane. What's wonderful about this is we obviously can't reach our back. And if you can't get to that massage therapist and you can't get that release in the shoulder blades and all that area that's gotten tight, that's all tied into all of the shoulder neck that's got you into possible frozen shoulder situation, this allows you to get into the muscles that are actually around the shoulder blade. And we've got the upper traps, we've got the middle traps that are more like the middle of your back, and then we've got lower traps. And usually it's the upper and the middle that get kind of tightened and locked in place, and they affect the whole shoulder girdle. So now we can take this Theracane, and what you can do is you can hold here, and then you'll notice how I can go and I can take this little ball, and here's my shoulder blade, right? So I can take that and I can just start to kind of go around that shoulder blade a little bit, and you might start to feel that there are different like knots, basically knots that get in there. So we get that fascia that I'm talking about. When it doesn't get a regular release, it actually gets all bound up and you get these knots. And that's what can cause a lot of where you get stuck, basically. So if I'm taking that and I'm kind of massaging around the shoulder blade and up into that trap area that I just kind of rolled with my hands, it just releases that even more. So it just goes into the muscles that are all around that shoulder blade to release those. So after I've, say, released the area that's around the shoulder blade, and I've also kind of released up into the trapezoid here. So now if I've got a frozen shoulder issue, like I said, I've kind of released the muscle that's there in the back that affects the shoulder, and I'm now going to hold this muscle. I'm just going to, again, just very slowly raise up to where I just feel that little bit of opening in behind the shoulder blade, and then come right back down. So just little by little, just kind of opening up through the muscles in that shoulder blade, and then I just kind of come back down. So it's all just little by little, just letting your body tell you how far you can go when it comes to frozen shoulder. That now, again, to make sure that you recognize that not all frozen shoulder issues are because of tight muscles. You could possibly have, something that's torn. So if there's actual pain when you're doing any of this, you want to make sure that you take the next step and reach out to a doctor and find out, if you possibly need to get an x-ray or MRI. But these are ways that at least if you just notice that you're carrying a lot of tension in these shoulders and in the neck area, that could be causing the issues in your shoulders. I personally think that one of the best things you can do is just have a regular, because we're always carrying tension here. I mean, that is just the norm for the human body. I think it's a really good idea to just constantly do that kind of release through the base of the skull, down into the neck, into the shoulders, rolling into the shoulders, and I always say, just breathe into it. And doing that on a regular basis, getting a Theracane, opening up through the back there, the shoulder blades, so that you just always kind of have this release in that area, and then you don't possibly take yourself into frozen shoulder or possibly tear something because everything's gotten so tight. So that's kind of a brief on frozen shoulder type of issues. Another thing that can lead to frozen shoulder, or definitely leads to forward posture. So we know that forward posture is because a lot of the stuff that we do is front loaded, right? So we everything we do, we reach from the front. And every time we're reaching from the front, what's happening? These muscles here, our chest muscles and the muscles that tie into the shoulder, are always being worked, but they're being shortened. They're basically getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And before you know it, we're doing that. We're working on a computer, we're bent over, we're on our phones, we've got that forward head, everything's starting, and then before you know it, we're here, and these muscles have gotten so short. And then the shorter these muscles get, the more over we go. And then guess what starts to happen? Your actual skeleton starts to bend. And once you actually bend your skeleton, you cannot bend bone back. So the key to avoiding that hunched over posture that sometimes happens with aging is to, earlier in life, really focus on having a lifted posture so that you don't bend your bone. Because once you've bent your spine and bent these different bony structures, they will just stay bent. And so, but we can rectify fascia, muscle, those kind of tissues. So that's where the tennis ball comes in. That's where we have to do the chest work. So we know that the muscles have gotten tight here. So what happens is it's not always just the chest muscles, like everybody says, well, I just need to stick my chest out and put my shoulders back. Well, it's, yes, you do need to put your shoulders back, but it's more like you need to lift your shoulders up and set your shoulder blades back on your back and then down. So when you're sitting in a chair or sitting against something hard, if you feel your back kind of like in this position and you feel your shoulder blades sort of poking into that chair, your shoulder blades have rounded out so that you're kind of here. If you set your shoulder blades down on your back, now they're flush to your back and then you're flush to your chair. So one of the best things I can recommend is every time you're in a chair, every time you're in your car, anytime, I do this all the time in the church pew because they're so hard because they're wood. You want to just feel that. Feel what's happening in your back. And if you feel yourself in that rounded posture, set your shoulders, pull them up, and then bring them down and set your shoulder blades down. But in order to release the muscles that are pulling you forward as well, just being mindful of that, is we need a tennis ball to release the muscles. So the muscle is, we've got our chest muscle here, our pectoralis major, and then we've got the muscles here that go into like where they attach to the arm. So it's right here, like right here at the base of like the shoulder, and where the shoulder meets the trunk of your body. That's the muscle that gets shortened. So you have the chest muscle, but then you have this, which is your pectoralis minor, and then some other bunch of different muscles that go into your whole shoulder girdle, and then even under your armpit, because then that goes back into your shoulder blades. So all of this ends up going into the back of your body, and that's how everything is, like I said, interconnected. So where the tennis ball comes in is that same thing where we're kind of massaging through with our hands, or the Theracane for the frozen shoulder. This helps through the chest. So what you do is you want to really roll. You just roll. Again, it's just that myofascial release, and then even the muscle that's below that. So skin, fascia, and then muscle. You're just rolling through that. And then ideally, you even want to really get like right into where it connects here. So here's my shoulder. Here's my like kind of the chest. Right in there. And it can be very uncomfortable. For me, it's very uncomfortable because mine's really, really tight. It's really shortened. And I'm working on this daily when I remember. And then even under the armpit. So you kind of want to go in under that armpit because all the muscles get tight in there as well. And that pulls that whole shoulder forward. So we want to release that. So that if you roll the ball, it will release that. Let me do this side so I don't get all out of balance. It allows you to basically release those muscles. And then you can open up for a good stretch. And then this is where I would say, like, do your tennis ball and then find a doorway and do a doorway stretch. And that's where you would set yourself up on a doorway and you would kind of open up through the muscle here and kind of lean against it so it opens up. And I'll definitely post some links about these different things in the group so that you'll have some stuff to actually look at, like some diagrams. But when you are doing any type of door stretch, to just be very mindful not to overstretch so that you don't tweak your shoulder. Because again, we want to get a stretch. We don't necessarily want to cause pain to the shoulder itself. So, but in order to get a stretch, like a lot of people will say, well, I'm always doing those doorway stretches, but I'm not noticing that my posture is getting any better. Well, if you don't release with a ball, I just think the tennis ball works really great. If you don't actually release the muscles can't really stretch. You can't stretch a muscle that is so tight unless you can kind of get that fascia release. So that's why this self-manipulation is so important. So I highly recommend the tennis ball for that. Tennis ball could actually also be used for the shoulders a little bit, but I just really like it for the chest. What I recommend, especially for women and especially for larger breasted women, because that, again, that's weight that's pulling you forward. But, women, we tend to carry the babies a lot and all that. So if you could really start a daily practice of the tennis ball rolling through there and really setting those shoulders up and down and doing those doorway stretches, what I've told my clients is literally make it like brushing your teeth. Like you have to brush your teeth every day, you have to do your posture roll every day. Because like I said, if you start getting too far forward, you can't bend your bone back. And then when you start having a bent over spine, that's a whole, my grandmother had that, and she was in agonizing pain for the final years of her life because her spine was just literally breaking little by little by little because her posture had gotten so forward. So I am going to stress to everybody that posture is so important. And remember, everything is connected. So if your shoulders are rolling forward and your neck is pulling forward and your posture is poor up here, it's going to affect things down below. It's going to start to affect your other areas of your back. It's going to affect other parts of your body. So it's very easy to get in a habit. I like to keep this literally right on the end table at the sofa. Like, so when I'm sitting there watching TV, and I've actually got my husband doing it as well, I just roll. I just roll while I'm watching TV, and then the next time I get up to go to the bathroom, I do a doorway stretch. So it's the ball's there. It reminds me to do it because it's right there. I can't forget because it's right there. So I highly recommend that you make that a daily thing. Brush your teeth, roll your chest. So that's really important. That's a good posture thing. Okay, so we've kind of covered posture a little bit. We've covered the frozen shoulder a little bit. Now, foam rolling. Now, foam rolling is, again, myofascial release. There are all different types of foam rollers, and they're all different. Some are harder than others, and I highly recommend, and I will be giving you a link to where you can buy some foam rollers. One of our members, Lori, she does stock these in her health and wellness, on her health and wellness product website. And she has some of the softer ones. So I do recommend, especially if you're starting out a foam rolling routine and you've not done it before, to go with a softer version because it can be uncomfortable. It is releasing tissues that can get very tight. Like I said, you can kind of get those knots and it can get very uncomfortable. So making sure that you start with a softer foam roller. And one of the key things about foam rolling to be very careful with is it's work. Like, it's work to have to put yourself into these different positions on a foam roller. So if you don't feel safe doing that, another option is something similar to this. So it's like a rolling pin. This one has knobs on it. I actually don't really like knobs. I prefer to have no knobs, but this is just what I had handy. So it would be the same thing. So let's just say, like, I've got some tight calf muscles. I would just roll through the calf muscles and kind of release through the muscle there. Same thing on the with your thighs. Your IT band is very important. Your IT band is basically what connects your lower body to your upper body, and it runs up the side here, and that can get very tight. So just, again, lightly, it shouldn't be super painful, but you want to feel that you're kind of breaking through. So this is a good way if you don't feel safe using a foam roller. That's another thing to say about foam rolling. The key to foam rolling is, when you do find a sore spot, you don't really want to sit on it for more than about 20 seconds. And you don't want to over foam roll. So you, and really kind of like with anything, if you're, like, say you do find a spot and it's very uncomfortable, and you kind of, and I'll show some different technique with that. When you are foam rolling, if you continue to go over that same spot, like day in and day out and day in and day out, if there's a tight muscle there, you want to slowly release it. But if you keep aggravating it, that doesn't necessarily help either. So it's kind of one of those, sometimes you can overdo it. So you want to be mindful that, okay, yeah, you're doing a little release work, but then give your body a break from it as well, because you are still traumatizing a spot that is needing a release, but it needs to do it in its time. So we have to be mindful. I've learned the hard way on that. So with foam rolling, it does roll. So it's obviously being very cautious of not wanting to roll away and hurt yourself in any way. But first and foremost, when it comes to foam rolling, one of the best areas to definitely start out with is your butt. Why is that? Okay, so we talked about everything being connected, right? So if you think of everything connected from your head to your toes, and you think about, here's your low back, and this is where a lot of us have issues, right? We carry tension here. Just a lot of us have possibly a weak low back, but this is where we carry tension. Well, what is your low back right next to? Your butt. So believe it or not, your butt muscles, your glute muscles, which are muscles that are used all day, every day, constantly. When you're walking, when you're getting up and down, when you're doing all kinds of things, right? These muscles are always working. And they can get very, very tight without us even realizing it. And when they get tight, and those knots that I'm talking about that get stuck in your body, that fascia that gets kind of bound up, they will then, this muscle that's attached to the low back muscle will then start pulling on your low back. And then before you know it, the spine is being compressed in your low back because those muscles are pulling, and they're tight, and they're tight, and they're tight, and your spine is not having that flexibility. And then before you know it, you've got vertebrae that are rubbing together and causing all kinds of issues. So you want to be able to really have that release there. So foam roll your butt. The best way to release your, to possibly, I'm going to say possibly because everybody has different things that are going on with their low back, but if you start to have low back issues, I just say at least try foam rolling if you feel safe doing it. So what we do when we foam roll, excuse me, is you want to lean, so you get on it and kind of feel what it feels like. And first you just kind of want to roll a little bit just to feel what that feels like. And like I can feel my sit bones, and you know, you're kind of rolling like at the, like where you sit, and then kind of towards the top, like at the hip. So here's your low back and here's the hip. Just kind of rolling back and forth to just release it. And then what you'll notice is when you shift to side and your body weight shifts, your body weight, Oliver, come here. Sorry, come here. Your body weight, when it shifts side to side, puts more weight on the actual area. And so when you're rolling, when you find a spot, like I have found a spot now, Oliver, come on. I have found a spot now that is pretty tight. And so what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to roll real slowly now. So now there's a spot that I'm finding. So if I can just go slow over that spot, and then I can actually feel how that spot attaches to my hamstrings. So I'm actually feeling that connection of the muscle from my butt to my back of my leg. I may have to get rid of the dogs. So again, you just roll through it slowly and just letting the body kind of just get through it just a little bit. Just nice and slow, nice and slow. Here we go. And so then that side's pretty good, so then I'll go to the other side. So it's the same thing. So you're just kind of rolling through, and when you find that knot, you just roll a little bit slower so that you can let that body kind of release what that spot is there. So that's how we would do the butt. And so when we're doing the butt, you basically want to go all the way from, like, so say here, let's say if we're going, you can always obviously then go into your hamstrings. So if you go to the hamstrings, going behind the knees, you want to be careful not to roll right behind your knees. Kind of, you want to be careful of joints. So you can just roll through. And then really, actually a really other good spot, sorry, I just realized this, your hamstrings attached to your butt, that's a good spot to sit in because right at that attachment is where we can get really, really tight. One of my clients likes to call that the thut, where the thigh meets the butt. It's the thut. That gets very tight, and that's what causes a lot of tight, like when you're walking and it's uncomfortable in the back of your legs or bending over. So you just sort of sit there and then just roll slowly through it. So that's an area that's really, really good to get our hamstrings, the connection there at the back of the thigh to the butt, and then the butt itself. When we go to the back of our body and actually get off the butt area, you always want to be careful on a foam roller not to really roll right at the low back because there's not a whole lot of muscle that's here, and that's kind of where where the tailbone is and that lumbar spine. Just be very mindful not to roll right there. Try and go, so you can go to the butt and kind of the hips here, but then this area, they say just not really to go in there because there's not a lot of muscle. Try and get yourself more at the upper part of that low back and then into your mid back. So again, it's kind of manipulating your body. So like I said, just being safe. So I'm going to go ahead and just place this here and lean into it, and then I'm going to shift my hips up, and now my body weight is actually on my, my spine, so I'm feeling my back, and then I'm going to go all the way up. So what I like to do to help with posture is I put my hands back a little bit, and then I roll to right in that area that we were actually opening up with the theracane, and then again I just go to the middle of the back. And there's all kinds of popping going on here. So what I'm doing is I'm actually releasing my spine a little bit. I'm doing a little bit of chiropractic work here, which is wonderful. And when that spine gets all bound up, that can actually affect your nervous system, because remember, your spinal cord is there. So you just go nice and slow and easy and just kind of open up through the back. Just being mindful. See, like my neck's starting to get a little uncomfortable from holding it, so then I'm just going to come out of it. So now I've released kind of the back, and I've opened up through the spine and in through the shoulders, and that just basically released a little bit of my skeletal issues that could be there. So I had some myofascial release, also the back muscles, but then also the skeleton kind of opening up with that roll. So I've opened a lot of those things up. That's the back of the body. Let's do the front of the body. So same thing. This is where it's almost like planking. So this is where, like I said, some people, if they don't feel real strong in their core or feel safe to be doing this, this is where this would come in, and you could be doing the front of your thighs. But if you do want to do the foam roller, again, mindful of the knees, never wanting the knee cap to be on the foam roller. So we want to just take the foam roller and put it where your thighs are on there, and you're kind of like you're in a plank. And then you just roll to where you get just to where you're just about at the knees, and then roll all the way up to the hips. So right into here, like these hip flexors can get really tight. And so I like to do it where I'm just kind of even at first. And then if you want to get more on one side, that's where you're going to get a stronger, like, that's where you're going to go really deeper, like the weight shifts. So now I just shifted to my right side. Now I'm feeling a lot more in that right quadricep, the front of the thigh, and I'm actually getting the inner thigh on my left side a little bit. And then if I do the same thing on the other side, see what happens? So now I've shifted, and now my left thigh, and now I'm getting a little bit of that inner thigh on my right side. So you're just rolling through slowly, and again, it's all slow. The slower you go, the better, because that's how you're really breaking up the fascia. You're really getting through that layer of fascia that's under the skin so that you can release that connective tissue. And how do we get, like a lot of people say, well, why would you need to do that? Like, why would I need to release that? What is that really going to do for me? So that connective tissue, that fascia that I'm talking about, it doesn't only get tight from our everyday activities and just the tension and tightness of movement in our body, but the foods we eat, the air we breathe, there are toxins in all of that on some level. That's the life that we live. And those toxins actually get stuck in our tissues. They get stuck in our muscles, of course they can get stuck in our organs, and they very much get stuck in the connective tissues, which is our fascia. And so when you do foam rolling or get any type of like deep tissue massage, I mean, I just highly recommend deep tissue massage for so many reasons, is you are releasing those toxins. You're getting that toxin out of your body and detoxifying. So you're not only releasing the muscle so that your body can maneuver better, but you're actually getting toxins out of your body so that your overall health can be better. And so I don't forget, just since I brought that up, when you do any type of self-manipulation, massage, foam rolling, anything, you always want to make sure you drink a lot of water after, and maybe even during, but for sure after, because like I just talked about, toxins are now swimming in your body from all that myofascial release, and you need to pee that out. You need to drink as much water as you can, and then that urination flushes your system and gets the toxins out of your body. So, and I do highly recommend alkaline water, especially when you're doing this type of work, because a lot of that toxic lactic acid that you're expelling through this self-massage is, it's kind of acidic, and so this will help to kind of stabilize the alkaline acid balance in your body. So definitely want to always do a bunch of water. what else is there? Oh, a really good posture with the foam roller. So again, if you feel safe being with a foam roller, this is wonderful. So if we want to bring the ball back into our world, I love doing this one. And now that my breast implants are out, I can actually do it. I could not do this before because my breast implants were behind my chest muscles and completely messing everything up. So you set yourself at the end of your foam roller safely. You roll through, like, okay, so we've done our little rolling, we've done our roll of our chest and into our armpit, roll the chest into the armpit. So you really get a nice release of the chest and shoulder area. Then you slowly put yourself onto the foam roller, very slowly, making sure that your head can fit on here as well, and centering your body. And so what's already happening for me in this position is the foam roller is between my shoulder blades, so it's actually opening up and putting pressure on the muscles in my mid-upper back. So it's opening up through those muscles, which is wonderful because those are the muscles that tend to get, because we're sometimes pulled forward, that forward shoulder we've talked about, those muscles need to kind of be spread apart, like they get a little bit locked up together in that forward. So now I've opened them up. And then what you can do is you set a goal for yourself and see if you can eventually get to the point where you can actually have your hands down. But if you'll notice, I hope you guys can see this okay. As you start to raise your hands, so I'm here and I'm just taking my hands out to the side. So I'm about here. Right now, I am feeling a really deep stretch through my chest. That area that I'm talking about that has gotten so short and keeps all of us in that forward posture, I've got such a beautiful, comfortable, lovely stretch right here. And then slowly, you just bring your hands up, and if you can. And if you can always just stay right at that other, but if you, over time, so now it's an even deeper stretch and it's a little bit of a different stretch. Now I do notice that my lower back is starting to arch a little bit, so that just means my muscles are really tight in my chest, and that's pulling into my lower body. It's all connected. But I'm just going to slowly go up overhead and just opening up through those chest muscles. So I'm really feeling a good stretch. And then, ooh, and I got a nice good pop there. And then opening up. And then I like to just kind of be here. So I will just sometimes just lay here and just let these muscles just open up. And I'll take nice deep breaths in, because that deep breath actually opens the chest muscles even more. Oh, and I'm opening up through my rib muscles. And then exhale. One more time, inhale. So do you see how that rise and fall of my chest, I'm also opening up through those chest muscles, opening up through the ribs, these intercostals, all these muscles that tend to get tight and kind of constricted from that forward posture and from stress. So the one thing to be mindful when you're in this position is slowly coming off and being very careful, because you're obviously rolling off and you just have to be very slow about it. So that's a really good posture. So if you were going to really want to get a solid posture practice where we talked about doing this daily, if you were to really add the foam roll where you can lay on that and just open up through that chest, that to me is a much better stretch than even doing the doorway stretches, because you can kind of get both sides. You can just kind of hang in that. You can relax in it. You can breathe. You can allow your lungs to really open up, and you can get some really good breathing in as well. So I find that very therapeutic. So that's kind of the basics on foam rolling. The last thing I want to show you, and then I want to open it up for questions, is using these big balls for stretching your back. So we all talk about how we have these back issues, right? And again, we may not be able to get to the chiropractor, but you can do a little bit of chiropractic work yourself. I just did with the foam roller when I was rolling my back. I opened some things up. You can open your hips when you're rolling on there as well. There's so many different things that can happen there. And I would be happy to actually do foam rolling workouts, so to speak, with you guys, because they're so beneficial. But if you want to use, do a little bit more stretching, so just let me just show you one more thing. Take one of these larger balls, and you're going to put it here, and you're basically just going to put yourself over the top of the ball so that you're really opening up through your spine. So you're kind of just going to hold yourself, and you just hang here. And really relax your head, and you can even kind of reach your arms out. And it just allows your butt, so see how my spine can just really be open? It just really feels good to just kind of open up. Again, we're just always trying to open up the spine and open up the fascia so that everything moves more freely. And especially with the spine, so that's when on the forward, especially with the spine, because when the spine, with all the walking we do and everything, there's always compression, compression, compression. And that compression over time causes all kinds of issues. But again, it does affect your nervous system. You know, you've got your spinal cord, which affects everything. Your central nervous system runs through there. So when we are tight, when our spine is compressed and when our muscles are tight, all of that affects your central nervous system, and it affects your overall wellness. Guaranteed, guaranteed. If you were to really have this constant practice of self-care and really learning how to release these different things in your body, your whole being will change. I guarantee it. I'm proof of it. And then how to do this on your back. And this is one to be very careful of when you're doing the one for your back, obviously, because you don't want to tweak your back in any way. But just putting yourself in this position and then just slowly, and I like to do it very slow. I have scoliosis, so I have to be very careful of my spine. So I just go slow. Oh gosh, and I just got a nice pop in my upper back, and it felt really good. And I don't like to do this one real long. I just go in, I got that little bit of an adjustment, and then I'm going to tighten my core and lift myself up. So for me, because I have scoliosis, I don't want to be there too long because my spine is bent. And so being in that position could actually injure me. But it was just enough to kind of open up at that neck area. I felt it right in my mid-back up neck area where there's a lot of tension there. It opened up, and then that's good for me. For those of you that don't have a bent spine issue, to be able to hang out in that position for a little bit actually would probably benefit you, because you can open up even more through the actual spinal column. So that's basically it. I cannot stress enough that self-care in this way, it doesn't cost you anything except for buying a few different items, and then you can have them forever. So it doesn't mean I don't think that people should go. I go to a massage therapist on a regular basis because of my issues and because I have connective tissue disease, which means my fascia is actually all jacked up. So I have to get help with that where they go deep tissue. But I do this as well. And right now I haven't been able to go to him, and I'm doing this, and this is saving me so that I can actually move. Otherwise I would literally probably be frozen in my body. So, but sometimes you can't afford it or whatever. You don't have time. So you just literally, if you could just say, okay, 10 minutes a day, I'm going to get on my foam roller. I'm going to do my tennis ball. Like, you just set up a little routine. I would be happy to like build a routine for all of us. And we just set that up as that's our self-care thing that we do. We brush our teeth. We do our self-care. We're good. And then it will help everything with your overall wellness. So I highly, highly, highly recommend it. I would say prioritize, right? This is not something that you just do like, oh, I finally have some time, I'm going to go foam roll. No, I really think that we have to remember that these things need to come first before all the other stuff, because this affects how we interact in the world, because it affects our nervous system, it affects our overall health. So that's my, I'll get off my soapbox or whatever they say. So those of you that are with me, regarding the tools that I've used here and the different things I've showed you, I'm happy to take questions, although I do need my glasses and I don't know what I did with them, so that I can see you and what you guys are saying. That's what happens when you have too many toys in the room. Oh, here they are. So you that have joined me live, which thank you, thank you, thank you, it makes me feel connected since I feel so isolated. But if you can just type in some questions that you might have regarding anything that I've done, or if you would like for me to show you a specific area to work or anything. I would love to take some questions from anyone of any kind. Or not. Trying to think if there's anything while I'm kind of waiting for questions to come through, if there's anything that I have forgotten. You know, it's one of those things where I always have an idea of what I want to talk about, but then sometimes I get sidetracked and my ADD kicks in. But I think I've covered everything. Just kind of, the key to all of it is just listening to your body and letting your body tell you when it is ready to release. We don't ever want to force anything, especially when you're working on frozen shoulder release. When I was talking about holding up here and then raising your arms up slowly, You want to just go only as far as you can to open up those muscles through the shoulder blades. If you overdo and go too quickly, then that's when you can actually tear something, because the one thing we have to remember is when we do have tight muscles, when our body gets used to working a certain way with the muscles the way they are, and it affects our posture and how we move. And if you suddenly change that too quickly, or try and overdo or mend yourself too quickly, you will cause injury, because your body has gotten used to being a certain way and maneuvering a certain way. But we can, over time, if we just slowly practice these different things, we can mend ourselves. We have to go very slow, and be very patient with yourself and with your body. And always remember that if you continue to have more issues, definitely see a physical therapist and have them give you different exercises, or there's different personal trainers out there that specialize in some of these things. And so, just do what you need to do to stay safe, right? So does anybody have any questions? Nobody has any questions? I think I've covered everything. I was going to go for about an hour, and we're almost there. I think one of the greatest things is when you first start kind of manipulating your body and doing these different massage things, like when I ask us to massage, and do different things with your hands and feeling through your body. I know it feels really awkward at first, because we're not used to touching ourselves in that way. Like it feels weird. Where to have a massage therapist do it is one thing, but for us to do it, it's another. And that's just something to pay attention to, and just to know that nobody knows your body like you do. So it's actually better for you to learn to self-manipulate and self-heal in certain ways, because you know what's going on in your body, and that's how you learn your body. You start to learn, like, well, I can't raise my arm up. Well, why can't I raise my arm up? Okay, well, this muscle's tight. Okay, well, if I put pressure there, now I can. And then you start to feel these different things. And the more you actually know about your body, the better you will be at actually keeping yourself safe throughout your life. Just in things that you're doing, you will start recognizing how your body works, your own body mechanics. You'll start feeling all these different connections. And so I'm a firm believer that even though it might feel really awkward at first to manipulate your own muscles and massage yourself in those ways, I think it's imperative, really. And it's a way to practice self-love too, right? And if we're having trouble with doing that, maybe that's something we have to look at about ourselves. I know for me, that's what it's been. So anyway, so I hope, now I can't see without my glasses. I hope this was beneficial for you guys. When I do this kind of stuff, I know it seems all over the place, but like there's just so much. Like literally, I could talk about this kind of stuff for like a day. So I hope I at least covered the basics of it, and you understand why it is so important to practice these different things. And if you guys do think of any questions, you can always either message me. Like if some people I think are private. Send me something via Messenger. I'm happy to answer questions that way. Or of course, you can post something in the group, because remember, you may have a question and your question could be the same question as 5 other people, and they're just thrilled that you were willing to put it out there. So, feel free to share that way. And we'll just continue to take care of our bodies, right? That's all we can do. Practice these things so that we can be the best versions of ourselves and promote wellness. I think that's what's most important, is we've got to remember that this is not, even getting massage or doing self-massage or whatever, this is not luxury. This is necessity. It really, really is. So I really hope that I can instill that in your minds, that deep therapeutic massage, this kind of stuff, it is not something like getting a pedicure. This is something that you need to do to be well. So I love you guys, and I thank you for tuning in. And if we want to do more of these, or if we want to start doing actual self-care workouts together, let me know, and I would love to do that. But I want to, it's for you guys, so just let me know, and I'm happy. I do this kind of stuff all the time, but I can certainly do it in front of a camera. So, all right, talk to you guys later. Have a good night. Bye.